Hello everyone. I'm sorry I'm unable to be with you in Izmir today, but I'm sure you're going to have a great meeting even without me. So what I want to do in the next few minutes is to give you an update on the status of Workgroup 4, where we are, and a little bit of where we are going. So as you all know, Workgroup 4 had a mission, and this mission had to do with the development of new computational tools for the discovery of multi-target drugs or multi-target ligands. And the mission had a set of tasks associated with it, basically selecting and testing the best virtual screening protocol, performing the virtual screening campaigns, and analyzing the result by a consensus approach, again with multi-target ligands in mind. The task has an associated set of milestones, again, defining the best protocol for virtual screening, actually doing the virtual screening, and generating the consensus report. And of course, there have been deliverables associated with the milestones, and these are shown here. So a few numbers. We have 16 members from 12 countries. To date, we've published 18 papers, and we've participated in the short-term scientific mission from the first and second grad periods. We've had many collaboration with other work groups, in particular with Workgroup 3, and many of this collaboration had to do with the Chemoteca database, which I'm going to talk about in a few slides. A few more related activities, so lectures, posters, which are related to our activity, has been presented in all cost action meetings. And in addition, we've had 3 very successful trainings called the first one in Vienna, the second one in Siena, and the third one last year in Lugano. And all these trainings will feature lectures in the mornings and hands-on tutorial in the afternoons. And in my view, this is a very favorable combination. So where exactly do we stand now after almost 4 years of the cost action? So a lot of work has been done using many computational tools like virtual screening for macroforeign docking, MD simulation, QSCR work, or machine learning. And all this computational work was associated to or related with multi-target ligands. Something which we've just recently done is we took 800 compounds from the Chemoteca database, and we docked all of them against 5 targets, all of which are related to Alzheimer's disease using 2 methods, GLIDE and GOLD. And we have presented the result on the Pareto front. And this is something I would like to give you a bit more details about. Before I do this, I need to give an introduction. So people have been doing virtual screening on single target for years. And actually, people have been also doing virtual screening on multiple targets, but doing it in a sequential way. And what do I mean by this? Suppose you have a set of compounds and you want to dock it against one target. So here's the result, and suppose this is the most active compound. You have another target, and then you repeat the docking exercise, and suppose this is the most active compound. And then you have a third target, or maybe not a target, a computational model against which you want to screen these compounds. Say this is a toxicity model, and this is the best compounds against this model. So the obvious question now would be, which compound from among the 3 to select? Or maybe none of them. And this problem has to do with something which I've emphasized over and over again. Drug discovery is basically a multi-objective optimization problem. The reason for this is that we have several objectives, efficacy, toxicity, ADME, and so on and so forth, which we need to balance simultaneously. And sometimes these objectives are contradictory. Now, I would argue that finding compounds which binds to multiple targets, so-called polypharmacology, simply adds another layer of complexity to the problem of drug development. So Drug development, as I just said, is a multi-objective optimization problem, and this is very different from single-objective optimization problem. The reason is the following. For a single-objective optimization problem, that is, when you're trying to optimize a single objective, it might be toxicity or efficacy or anything else, there is always one best solution. That is, you will always find, there is always one compound which best performs for this objective. Now, it may be very difficult to find this compound, but this compound exists. In contrast, when you are trying to find, or when you're having a multi-objective optimization problem, there is usually not one compound which is the best solution. There is usually not one compound which is better than all the other compounds in all solutions. Instead, what you typically get is a set of equally good solutions, and these solutions are populating what is known as the Pareto front, and I'm going to get to it in a minute. So how do you solve a multi-objective optimization problem? The first way would be to turn it into a single objective optimization problem. And the way to do it is to take your set of objectives, associate to each and one of them a weighting function, and then optimize a function which is the weighted average of all the objectives. Now, the problem with this approach is that the way you select the weights might be very arbitrary, so there is not necessarily a logic behind this. Another way is to use the Pareto concept, or to find a set of non-dominated solutions. Non-dominated solutions are solutions that there is no other compound which is better than them in all the objectives. And these non-dominated solutions are found on the Pareto front, which is shown here by the red circles. So here's a toy example. Suppose we have three objectives. One target, log BB, and one anti-target. We want to find the compound with the highest pKi against the target, the highest log BB value, because we want this compound to penetrate the blood-brain barrier, and we want to find the compounds which have the lowest hERG binding pKi, because hERG is an anti-target. Here are 10 compounds, here are the activities, and if you do the simple mathematics, you find that compounds 3, 9, and 10, which are indicated below in red circles, populate the Pareto front. That is, there is no other compound which is better than these compounds in all objectives. We can visualize the Pareto front in 3 dimensions, and the compound which populate it are the blue triangles. So where do we go with this concept? The idea would be to define a set of biological targets against which we want our ligands to bind, obtain experimental data from these targets, for example, from the Campbell database, and then using this data, develop predictive computational models. Now, these models could be docking models, QSAR models, pharmacophore models, basically anything you want. Then we will virtually screen database against these compounds using these models, take all the results and present them on the Pareto front, thereby generating a set of compounds which will be a good candidate for further optimization. Here is one example. In this example, we took 800 compounds from the Chemoteca database. We seeded and we docked them against 5 targets, which are shown here. These are the PDB codes for these targets. And all these targets are relevant or are implicated in Alzheimer's disease. We took additional 10 compounds from Campbell, which we know are active against all these targets, and we combined them with the 800 compounds. We then generate the docking using glide, and we generated the Pareto front. In this case, the Pareto front included 71 compounds, which are shown here in kind of a mess of colors. And one of these compounds found at the Pareto front, the one which is shown by a very thick blue line, is indeed one of the 10 compounds which are experimentally known to bind to these 5 targets. We repeated the same exercise, this time using gold. We seeded the 800 compounds from Chemoteca with 20 compounds from the Campbell, again docking against 5 targets. In this case, the Pareto front included only 31 compounds. Unfortunately, none of the active compounds was found in the Pareto front. So what does this exercise tell us? First of all, it tells us there is probably no optimal solution, in the sense that each project will require or may require a different set of computational tools, different set of docking algorithm, QSAR algorithm, pharmacophore, and so on and so forth. It also tells us that there are several problems associated with the Pareto front. One of them is a general problem, has to do more with the level or with the degree of the computational models rather than with the Pareto front itself. So if the computational model is not good enough, the result which will be used to build the Pareto front will not be good. Now, the Pareto front which I showed you probably includes too many compounds, so we need to find a way to filter them. And then the Pareto front is insensitive to experimental or computational uncertainties. What do I mean by this? According to the Pareto concept, it is sufficient that compound A will be better or be more active than compound B by a very small margin in order to dominate it. However, this small margin may not necessarily be experimentally relevant. So we need to find a way to introduce experimental or computational uncertainties into building the Pareto front. The other problem is that the Pareto front is too sensitive to outliers. So if you have one compound which is better than all the other compounds in one objective, but is very poor compound in all other objectives, it will still be on the Pareto front. And clearly we need to find ways to filter out these compounds. Now, we think that all these problems are solvable, and we are currently working to solve them. This is one future direction in which we are going. The other future direction has more to do with the entire cost action, and as you all or many of you know, we have recently submitted an extension to the cost action called MuTaLig Plus, where we want to take some more time in order to further develop the Chemoteca platform and to develop other parts or to build on other achievement of the original cost action. So I think this is a good place to stop this update or to terminate this update. First of all, I've very much enjoyed this cost action. I hope you also did. I want to thank all of you, and in particular all the members of Work Group 4 for all your efforts throughout this action, and I wish you a great day and a great conference. Thank you and goodbye.